YouTube side as well. Go. There. Probably have time to run to our map, surely.
Please do not make my mistakes your own.
Oh yeah. Let me. I don't think the YouTube boys can hear the campfire right now. I need to go here to the settings. Audio settings. Rack 1. Okay, the YouTube boys should be able to hear the campfire now as well. I need to remember to change this after the stream, so I don't start streaming on YouTube and then I get the MC8. What we got here in Christophnos? Whatever. What? Oh yeah, I can't. Oh, I can't minimize it. Yeah. Okay, I forgot about that. If you minimize it, it goes away. Okay, now it's up again. Yeah. I always forget something. There might be a bit of a loop here. Yeah. Easy. There we go. Alive. Rash. No. Oop. I forgot to use my power. Oh well. It is what it is. Actually, I still have 50 mobs on the map. We might be able to properly use it. Maybe.
When I'm ready, I'm not before. What?
What the? Like I almost slapped the life out of me. Jesus. Single hit. One singular hit.
Let his power be known!
Hey, no that. No worries. I'll die on this one now. Wait, didn't I have... Oh, I already opened it. Alright.
Please do not make my mistakes your own.
Just another stumbling.
My mistake. Our mistake. Oh, this is the one that... Ooh, this one might suck a bit, because I don't have the survivability here. Sure, I guess. Yeah, I'm not sure I can do this one. Simply because, since they are immune to damage every now and again, I can't just out-damage my way through this. Right? And then since I'm quite squishy because of, you know, lower defenses, I kinda just get slapped. Yeah, this is gonna be a toughie, not gonna lie. I'm gonna try to remember to drop some portals here and there. Pick it up. Oh, oh, I don't. I have to deal with the Shaper as well. Yeah, this map is not getting completed. 100%. Hey, freak one. Cool. I'm just gonna... At least the maps I'm gonna loot instantly. Because at least I get something out of the map, you know? Okay. Oh, oh, leggy boy. Ooh. Ooh. Nice. Hey, yeah, are actually being able to... Huh. Surprisingly. Loot. I think I'm gonna...
Let his power be known!
When I'm ready, I'm not
Let his power be known!
3 minutes. I'll start running some of the ads, so we don't get the ads during the campfire. Just go grab some food, grab some drinks. We're not gonna do anything special here. There we go. Yeah. Let me... No, I can leave myself here for a second, actually. Whoop. There we go. Yeah. I'll be right back. I'll just go feed my cat. Meanwhile, we wait for this. Alright, since we already started, I need to change the... What? There we go. Okay. Just... Whoop. There we go. Let's change the... Fun fact, you can just mute the browser. Okay, done. There we go. Updated. Alright. Let me just check the YouTube site can listen to us. Oh, the YouTube site cannot hear. That's... why?
We've got Herodric Spellcraft, and we've got Herodric Jewels. Both of those systems are pretty deep, and I'm going to kick it over to Aislinn after I'm done to chat through those. We also have a new season journey pet named Dante. He's a good dog, but he certainly doesn't look good. But he'll be available, as will new reliquary reward. Sure that we were delivering it moving forward. And that's making sure that whenever we make updates to major systems, that those updates appear in both the seasonal and the eternal realms. Sometimes we'll call this evergreen, but at any rate,
That's...
a lot of updates to Nightmare Dungeons that apply to both
why?
realms. We're going to talk a bit about Herodric Strong Rooms. We're going to talk a bit about escalating nightmares, and some new Nightmare Dungeon affixes as well.
Okay.
And of course,
YouTube site is
we
working
will
now.
talk
Cool.
about the Astaroth boss battle. Now, finally, we've got a lot of new loot and class updates that are coming to Season 9. That's something that Charles is much better suited to cover than I am. So we'll kick it over to him, and we'll probably finish up with some quality of life updates. So let's jump into story. Let's see. I think we got a graphic. Yes, we're going to start with
It's gonna have like
Astaroth.
30 minutes of story. Is that it?
Those of you remember, Astaroth is somebody we have faced down before in Diablo 4, but he's got a bit of a backstory that's pretty important to Season 9. So Astaroth is the Charred Duke. He's the guardian of the Cathedral of Hatred. He serves Mephisto. Somehow, not sure entirely how, but somehow he escapes hell, and he starts laying waste, burning down Skosglen. Wants to make it as his own private hell. Now, clearly, you know, the Druids of Skosglen will not put up for that. And so they partner up with a Herodric mage named Donan, which we will see in our next slide here. Now, Donan, here he is with those Herodric mages, or rather, with those Druids. He's the mage. They band together and ultimately defeat Astaroth. Now, well, sort of, because much as what happens with powerful demons, Donan decides to trap Astaroth in a soul stone and buries that soul stone deep inside the earth. And as we all know, soul stones are ticking time bombs. And so by the start of Diablo 4, that is the situation we're looking at.
Nice.
Needless to say, Astaroth escapes. We defeat Astaroth as the Wanderer. Donan suffers some pretty tragic losses, including his life. And so in Season 9, this is our starting point, and there's something else going on. Something else is stirring in Scotland, and it's up to us to discover what's going on. So we are going to partner up with Briona. I believe we've got a image of Briona next. Now, Briona is a druid. She's got some history with Donan.
Why are they doing this? They did this
So
the
you'll
last
learn more about why that
campfire
is
as well.
as you're traveling with her. And your first stop on your travels is
They
up to
just
Eldheim Keep, where
fluff
there's been
it
a lot of
up.
demon activity and you need to
Like-
save some villagers. And at Eldheim Keep, you're going to make some pretty important discoveries for this season. I think we have some footage of that.
So much fluff.
So up in Eldheim Keep, you're going to be entering the keep, and on the floor where there's some demons fighting over it, you're going to see what is known as a Herodric Wayfinder. And this Herodric Wayfinder is pretty special. It's going to help you figure out where there are Herodric secrets buried deep within Nightmare Dungeons, and it's going to tug you in those directions and provide you clues and hints. So we'll see a little bit of that in action right now. Now, as you get closer, a Herodric totem is going to reveal itself, a gateway. And upon clicking it, you've got to fight a couple of enemies that are guarding it. But ultimately, you're going to discover that it opens a portal to an unknown part of this particular dungeon. So once we're defeating these enemies, we'll see the portal, and then we're going to jump right through. And so now we're inside what is known as a Herodric strong room. Now, first up, you're going to learn a little bit of the Herodric strong room mechanics. We've got a pillar here, and this pillar is going to help you gain more of what is known as attunement. And attunement is the score, essentially, for the strong room. And as you gather more, it's going to boost your rewards. But before you get into the actual strong room, you've got to choose what kind of test you want to take. And in fact, you can choose up to 3 tests. These tests are going to modify the strong room in some way, whether boosting attunement or giving you swiftness or varying up how the shrines behave in the strong room. So we're going to pick 3 here, and that will modify our run coming up. So we're going to jump in, and now we've got a timer in which to kill as many enemies as we can to prove our might to the Herodrum. And so you see we're playing around that pillar again. It flashed, which means we got the bonus. And now any of the enemies we kill at this point will give us additional attunement.
They really
And
need
you
to
notice on the
learn
side, the UI, we've got a great new UI here now.
it's nice
There
to
are
give a
6 levels
spice of
attunement that you
what
can
the
achieve,
lore behind
and
it all
each of those
is,
increases the amount of
but then
rewards
the
that you
whole
get at the end.
thing
So obviously
is
you're
not what
trying
people
to
are here
not
for.
only kill as many enemies as possible, but maximize
Like, first of all, a lot of people
that
don't want
attunement
to get
through clever
spoiled.
use of those pillars we mentioned before.
Second of all, the people
shrines,
that don't
the
care
tests you
about being
selected at the
spoiled
beginning,
probably
and so
already
forth.
know
Now,
what's
at the
going
end,
on,
you're
and
going
they
to fight
don't
a
really
boss.
care
In this
about
case, we're
this.
fighting the Pyroclast, and that's just a final skill check before we spawned the Grand Herodric Cache. The Grand Herodric Cache has a lot of cool legendaries, and it also has a buff on it that will encourage you to finish the rest of that Nightmare Dungeon. But also importantly for our conversation, it's going to have something else. And that something else is an escalation sigil, which you'll see in your inventory here. Now, this escalation sigil is important because this is the other big gameplay system that we've introduced permanently for Season 9. So let's talk about the escalation sigil for a bit. Now, this is going to spawn a series of dungeons. And at the end of that series of dungeons will be a boss if you're in the Torment tiers. So let's talk a little bit about the affixes, because we've done a lot of work on those. You see our starting affixes here. You get one positive and one negative. Now, the positive one is Equipment Delve. This is going to give you better loot drops as you go through. Also got Hunters. Hunters is a new affix, probably a little refurbished. I forget what it was called before, but this increases the monster speed of traversal and of attack against you. So that's not going to be too fun. Now, when you get to the end of that dungeon,
Did God
because I
bless
believe
that we
in
have the
you
thing
guys
that
can
can
get to the
destroy
end of that
wallers?
dungeon. In addition
Destroys
to
enemy
Equipment Delve and
structures.
Hunters, you're going to get Forgotten Wisdom and Waller Elites. Now, Waller Elites we all know and probably hate. I don't like them that much. Forgotten Wisdom is actually going to spawn XP wells around the dungeons, so you get an extra boost of XP as you're going through the dungeon and complete your runs. So let's see the escalating nightmares in all their glory. So this is a new run here. This one actually, we've got Herodric Bestiary, which is going to boost the amount of rep that you get for this particular run. And it's also got Khazra Hordes. Now, Khazra Hordes is actually modifying the enemies in this case. There's a lot more Khazra. They've taken this up as their home, and they're a lot more powerful in this dungeon. And so you, of course, defeat the Khazra Abomination at the end. And note that we've spawned a portal. So you don't need to go back to town. You don't need to go into your inventory to continue to run. You can just continue it from right here. And when you click on it, you see what you're going to get next. So we're going to jump right in and load up the next dungeon here. And as we jump in, we're going to find, you know, if we were reading the thing before, that there's actually a guaranteed strong room in this dungeon. So that's pretty cool. And that's going to give us a chance to actually double dip on rewards. And so you're going to find a lot of interesting combinations to really make these escalation sigils as efficient as possible. But ultimately, you get through your run, and you're going to be able to fight Astaroth, especially since we're in Torment 3. So here is the clip of the Astaroth fight. Now, when we were looking at Astaroth, we thought to ourselves, well, we're having a rematch. Obviously can't do the same fight, but since it is a rematch, we want to include elements of the previous fight. And so, you know, the fight starts with Astaroth astride his mount, and all of this part of the fight should be pretty familiar to you at this point. But then we want to start changing it up. And what better way to really create the feeling of a rematch is now that you get to fight Astaroth one-on-one. But, you know, even though the Amalgam is down, he's not out this time. And so the Amalgam is sitting in a pool regenerating, creating a hazard that you need to manage, while you also need to fight Astaroth. Of course, he can cheat and walk through the pool, but you can't. And so that's how the phases will escalate for Astaroth. And within the escalation sigil version of Astaroth, you even get new affixes and things like that that modify the fight even further. So we really tried to make this kind of a unique twist on a boss fight, something that you haven't seen before. And with that, I think I am done covering the Nightmare Dungeon section of this
Okay, good.
update. So
Let's go next.
I'm going to kick it over to
Class
Aislinn.
changes, please.
Aislinn is going to go pretty deep into spellcraft and jewels.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dan. And I'm so excited to go into those Nightmare Dungeons, those strong rooms, and especially the escalating sigil dungeons, because it's going to be a freaking huge burst of rewards. It's going to be great. It's going to be hard, too. Those Waller Elites are going to be a pain.
Yeah, especially when the affix stack up run over run throughout the escalating nightmares. It's going to be quite intense by the end.
It can get very intense.
The boss fight will be crazy.
Intense. So yeah, now these are going to present their own sets of challenges. So of course, we need to utilize the Herodrim's power in order to overcome those challenges. So with Season 9, we have Herodric Spellcraft. So there's a lot of different components to Herodric Spellcraft. So we're going to go over a quick overview and then dive a little deeper into how exactly it works. There are 3 different things that comprise the entirety of your Herodric spell. You're going to be crafting a Herodric spell in Season 9. You're going to need a catalyst. The catalyst is effectively the core of the spell. it tells the spell that it's going to be a celestial storm of stars, or it's going to be a beam of arcane energy that disintegrates your foes. And then secondarily, that catalyst needs to have a damage type. So you need to infuse it with one of 5 different elemental damage types. These can be fire, lightning.
That's the Arcana, by the way.
Frost and poison.
No.
And I'm not going to remember the last one.
Infusion, yeah.
And
That's the infusion.
yeah, so that determines the elemental damage type of the spell, and it also gives it some nifty extra effects too. And then finally, there's Arcana, which are just like extra bits and baubles you can add to go even further into customization. So like you can probably imagine, this is the build your own spell kind of power. And each one has a ton of unique utility as well. You're going to be able to disable various enemies' elite affixes. You're going to be able to garner powerful effects for your own build, like vulnerable or crowd control. There's tons of stuff you can do with it. So without further ado, let's jump into how exactly that works and how you'll be slotting it. So on the left side here, we have
Mostly going to be
Celestial
using
Surge.
this on the
That is
ultimate, by the
tooltip
way.
for one of the 5 catalysts that you can actually equip. It is the one that causes a star storm to fall on enemies. On the right-hand side, we have the Smoldering Ember, which is an infusion. So this will make Celestial Surge a fire version of the catalyst. So you will need to slot Celestial Surge, and you're going to have to assign it to one of the skills on your hotbar. So in the middle section, and we'll have a video to kind of show this, but basically you assign Celestial Surge to one of your own skills, and when you use that skill, it invokes Celestial Surge with the Smoldering Ember infusion applied to it. So let's take a look at what that actually looks like.
Smoldering Ember is gonna actually
So
be able
here
to
we are, kind of
destroy
tinkering with Heraldic Spellcraft in the UI.
the Walder
We're
stuff,
gonna
which is
equip
gonna be
Celestial
cool.
Surge, and we're going to assign it to our rightmost skill, which in this case is Lightning Storm, I believe. So whenever we cast Lightning Storm and Celestial Surge is off cooldown, we are going to cast Celestial Surge in addition to channeling Lightning Storm. Now, we can't use Celestial Surge, like I said, unless we have an infusion equipped. So we are also additionally going to equip Smoldering Ember and make that Celestial Surge a fire version of itself. And Dan, luckily for you, this makes it so it destroys Waller elites as well. So for anyone else out there that also dislikes Waller elites, this will cause Celestial Surge to break those walls down. Which is
Potentially,
great.
yeah,
It will
maybe
also turn
just
off,
remove
Chilling
them.
Winds as well.
You know?
So yeah,
Maybe?
now we have
Remove
a
them?
functional
Maybe?
spell. So let's go in. We're casting Lightning Storm, and we also see these stars falling. Not a very fun time for them, but a pretty great time for us. Everyone explodes, and we have a good day. Awesome. Now, there is a third component to Heraldic spells. It is called Arcana. So with Arcana, you don't need Arcana equipped for your Heraldic spellcraft to function, but it gives it a bunch of awesome extra effects. So we have 3 examples here. I'll go over them just really quickly. We have the Sapping Crux. It causes your catalyst to also apply vulnerable for a pretty
Right now, as it
substantial amount
is,
of time,
you're
so
just
you can
gonna run the
effectively
one that
solve,
executes,
vulnerable through this system.
and 2
We have
others to
Reactive
fix your
Ooze,
build,
which causes
basically.
you to generate a pretty substantial amount
Luckily,
of
the one
resource
that
every second for the
disabled
next 10
the,
seconds, so you can potentially
the
solve your
our
resource
immunity
build.
guy, and
we
then
also have
just
Sharpening
one
Gizmo,
fix your
which
build.
will blast people for quite a bit of physical damage and increase the lucky hit chance of your catalyst. Spoiler, your catalyst has a lucky hit chance, which can be really, really useful. Now, we also have some fancier Arcana. These examples are Magic and Rare Arcana, but the Nightmare Orb is Legendary. So Legendary Arcana is a bit different in that each of their effects differ based on which catalyst you apply them to. So these 2 tooltips might look the same at first glance, but they're actually for 2 different catalysts in the game. The left-hand side one is specifically for propulsion. So it causes propulsion to additionally fear enemies, and while they're feared, they periodically explode, which we will also check out. It sounds very scary, to be honest. And then on the right-hand side one, we have the disintegrate version, which causes them to take way more damage while they're feared from the actual catalyst effect, which is pretty great. So let's take a look at what this looks like in action. So we have a Spiritborn here who has the Nightmare Orb equipped to Propulsion. Boom, Propulsion explodes everywhere. They are all freaking out, they're feared, and they're exploding even more. And to be honest, I would also probably be feared if I was constantly exploding. So that makes sense. And that is the quick and dirty overview of the Heraldic Spellcraft system. There's a ton to experiment with in this system. Can't wait for you guys to dig into it. There's so many different combinatorics, so many different possibilities. So go wild, go crazy, try everything. It's a blast.
Yeah, I really love how you can customize it, not only in like the effect of the spell, but also like how you use it, right? They do have cooldowns, but then you can assign it to any one of the skills on your hotbar. So if you just like want to save it for a specific utility moment, right? You've customized it in such a way that, hey, it solves those Waller affixes, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you want to use it for. You can make sure it's assigned to a cooldown that you're going to save for that right moment. Or if you're just trying to really optimize its
just
damage
spam
output
it.
and its DPS, you just put it on your basic or core skill that you know it's going to come up very often. And you don't need to really think too hard about it. It's just going to trigger when it triggers.
Yep.
It's true. Like the crazy amount of combinations that come from the system. Like I know I said on the PTR stream, and I feel like the people who have played the PTR will be advantaged now because I feel like this is something that the patch notes just can't do justice. It's going to be very hard to read through that and get a good example of how you can theory craft and build craft through these. So it's really something you're going to need to jump into the game, get your hands on, and really start to tinker with because
sure, I guess.
So if you have
Not
played
really,
the
but
PTR
sure.
and you know these systems, then you've already got that advantage of knowing how intricate these systems are. So
It's true, it's true. And there's not just that. You know, you thought that was enough Heraldric magic. There's more.
throw another layer on it. Why not?
Yes, there's also Heraldric Jewels. So Heraldric Jewels are powerful gems that you can use to augment your Heraldric spellcraft and your character's build.
This one is
even
actually
further.
quite good.
So when you go into these strong rooms, once
Because the
you're
Jewel
in opponent
Guardians that
difficulty,
do spawn
whenever you complete
count
one,
for
you're going to find
progression,
a Heraldric
which is
tome.
cool.
And this is knowledge that the Heraldrim have stored away to craft these really powerful, unique Heraldric jewels. Once you find the tome and you use it, you can go to a crafting station and then with gem fragments and the seasonal currency, craft Heraldric jewels. They're crafted with Heraldric vials and gem fragments. It's not as many gem fragments as it was to craft occult gems, so it's not quite as a massive grind as it was before. And they're specifically socketed into amulets and rings. So you have 3 sockets that are specifically designated for this, which means that you can have up to 3 Heraldric jewels. And here we have an example of a Heraldric jewel. You know, it gives you some good stuff, core stat, max life, and you're going to be hunted in Sanctuary's darkest places. Well, that doesn't sound great.
Yeah, it sounds
I don't
quite
think you need to
good
worry about
actually.
that,
No,
Shouldn't
yeah,
be
that's
anything.
pretty good.
I'm sure that's just flavor text, right? That's all.
Oh,
that is.
yeah. No, that makes sense. Cool. Anyways, so let's talk about the how you craft Heraldric jewels with a little short video to show us what
This
that looks
actually
like.
is new. This actually
we
don't
have
know.
the Heraldric Lapidary here, which is where you're going to go to actually craft the jewels. We're going to navigate to the craft jewels section. We have them neatly organized among different categories to help you just, sift through it all pretty easily. And we have quite a few of these. I think there's I want to say 16 in total. There's 16 Heraldric jewels. So whenever you go into a strong room, you're going to find more tomes, which is going to let you craft more, and then yada yada. So here with our
that's the thing, you need to drop the
Spellball,
recipe for
Awakened
them.
Arbiter, we want to craft an idol from below. So we need 15,000 of 3 different gem fragments, and then 3,000 of the seasonal currency, and voila, we have our idol from below, which is fine because there's nothing wrong with this and nothing bad is going to happen from this gem at all, so it's no problem. You'll also notice that it gives you bonus armor and resistances, so you're not actually missing out on any of the bonuses you would typically get to your defense from normal gems being socketed in those slots. But so wait, what's this? It sounds like the idol from below is actually
I'm hearing
not
that's
great.
not actually just flavor text. It
What?
might be functional.
Oh my god. Oh no. Okay, so when you have the idol from below equipped, sometimes mummies will spawn. They're the jewel guardians that are guarding this jewel, and they will attack you, and they can be very scary. So be very careful if you decide
The biggest
to equip
problem
this
with
jewel,
these gardens is that
especially
they
if you're
don't
playing
respect the mob
hardcore.
type
My goodness, please don't equip
on
this jewel
the
if
on the
you're playing
pit, right?
hardcore or
So
expect
you
to
can
die.
get
They
some
don't
really
just spawn
hard
when
ones
you're
to
alone
kill.
in an empty room. Sometimes you're in the midst of an already big pack or a boss fight, even,
Yes.
and these guys will come out trying to get their jewel back from you.
Yep, it's pretty spooky. But you can
Imagine
do some
if
very
they
clever
actually
things
took
with
the
these
jewel if
guys.
they killed
Sometimes
you.
It's actually really good. to
That
have
would
extra
be
bodies that you can hit
interesting.
for like whatever skills or triggers you have, which is pretty neat. So let's move on to our final section here for the overview, which is PTR learnings. So we learned so much from PTR. We can't talk about every single thing because it's a tremendous list.
It is.
But we do have some highlights we wanted to talk to you guys about. So first of all, going over Heraldric Spellcraft. So we have made it so all of the deactivation effects that you get from infusions and various things, 3 seconds longer. So when you do actually deactivate an enemy affix like Waller or Chilling Winds, etc., it's going to last 8 seconds, up from 5. This is because we want to make sure that it feels as punchy as possible. When you do get that deactivation,
Hopefully that applies
you
to
have a
the
good amount
aura
of time
guys,
to
the aura
take them out
reduction
and
guys.
counterattack them.
Because that
Secondly,
will
we want
make
to talk
it
about the change of
basically
Siphoned
100%
Gizmo to Sharpened
consistent.
Gizmo. So we found that Sharpened Gizmo was challenging for us in the sense that like we want to maintain the competitive integrity of the game.
I
It's, like,
called
really important
this
for
3
us.
days before the
And
PTR
Sharpened
came
Gizmo
out,
was
by the way.
Siphoning Gizmo. Siphoning Gizmo
Siphoning
was on the
Gizmo.
It was
Yeah,
basically
sorry.
double dipping with
was
Berserk Ripping.
problematic in a variety of ways.
Yes, it was
Yeah,
problematic in a
you
variety
can
of
call it
ways.
problematic,
And we
I guess.
also saw the Sharpened Gizmo, which is the new one, as an opportunity for a more physical-focused Arcana, because we knew that that was kind of missing from the PTR, and we heard a lot of feedback about that. The next thing I want to talk about is the Propulsion teleport change. So this effect caused you to be able to teleport effectively infinitely in a lot of builds. And it was transformative, and so transformative to the point that it was actually stomping on build identity in many cases. And we really want you to experience the full breadth of what different characters can offer in Diablo 4. We don't want it to all be condensed down to like one thing, right?
Yeah, when you're playing a different class and a different build, you want your gameplay to feel meaningfully different. And these, the Heraldric Spellcraft here is kind of a complement on top of what you're already doing. It's a unique utility. It's an interesting wrinkle to your build.
Yes.
And on the PTR, we found that this particular teleport propulsion interaction was basically eclipsing everything else.
Yep.
And every single build, if you just like looked at a clip of different people playing different classes, it looked identical.
Yeah.
And that's not exactly the kind of gameplay that we think is healthy for Diablo 4.
Yeah, we want to make sure every build has a different silhouette and feels very different and textured. So that's really important to us. Another thing I want to talk about is that Disintegrate has a much wider area now. So before it was kind of a tiny little beam between you and the Disintegrate thing, but now it's much bigger. So you should be able to disintegrate
Bigger
many
is
more
better.
enemies
Yeah.
with it, which is great. And then beyond that, there are tons of miscellaneous changes to Heraldric Spellcraft. So go read the patch notes after this and check it all out.
Yeah, if you've never read the patch notes before, and especially in the blog as well, anything you see that's colored in blue are all changes that have been made since the PTR. So we've gone through, read your tons and tons of feedback, and there is just a sea of blue throughout the patch notes and the blog. Patch notes will be publishing following this stream, so go check those out and check out all the blue, because those are all the changes that you've all influenced. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, so moving on to Heraldric Jewels. So the first thing, we added an entirely new Heraldric Jewel. It's called the Will Breaker. It speaks directly to physical damage. We heard that a lot of Season 9 is focused on elemental damage, which is amazing and awesome and wonderful. But we also wanted to give physical builds some love and some tools to play around with. So the Will Breaker does specifically that. So if you want to smash people with your hammer or blow people up with bones of the necromancer or whatever, that's for you. And then secondarily, Liminal Echo, which is the cheat death jewel, will not be dropping in hardcore. We heard a lot of feedback from the hardcore community that it maybe went against the philosophy and the spirit of hardcore. So we really wanted to respect that. And this is also an ongoing conversation about what is the spirit of hardcore. So please keep giving us feedback about that. It's been super helpful, and we want to hear more from you. And then finally, of course, there are also many more Heraldric Jewel changes, more miscellaneous stuff. So again, after this,
to the skills. Let's go. Come on,
and with
skills.
that, I believe I'll be passing it over to Dan to talk about a myriad of changes with everything else.
Yeah, a myriad. So y'all had a lot of feedback on the Nightmare Dungeon updates. So I need a piece of paper to read them all off. I can't keep them all in my head. So first up, let's talk about the Heraldric Strong Rooms a bit.
30 minutes,
the Heraldric
25 of them
UI
fluff.
was not clear enough. And so we added a new UI to the Heraldric Strong Rooms. We added extra kill count messaging and extra timer warning. So it plays much, much tighter now. When you enter it, you should be able to pretty much pick up what's going on. Now, we're not going to tell you how to get those high scores, but the fact that you should be getting a high score should be pretty apparent now. Pillars didn't feel great. You had to stand in one spot for a long time in order to get the bonus. So, we've made the pillars faster to complete, made the radius a bit larger. And now all
Yeah, I
four
noticed
pillars
that,
will also
actually.
be
That's
available
good.
at the start. So you can better choose what your path through the Heraldric Strong Room is going to be. We also heard from a lot of you that the Strong Rooms really didn't support blasting well enough. And that comes in two flavors. It comes in challenge, and then it comes in the fact that Strong Rooms were overstaying their welcome a little bit. So we've added a pit-style death penalty. If you die, that timer is going to get knocked down, and you're going to have less room to earn. We've added additional ambushes as your attunement. We set the activity length to 100 seconds instead of 120 seconds. And also, if you should hit that max attunement, we're not going to force you to run out the timer. We're just going to spawn the boss right then and there. Now, a number of you also commented on Blood Bishop again. So we hear you. We built out a pool of bosses, mini bosses rather, that should spawn at the end of the strong room. And there's actually going to be a surprise or two in that pool as well. And then finally, there wasn't enough
Butcher,
incentive,
possibly.
we thought, for you to actually complete the Nightmare Dungeon after doing the strong room. So we've added a buff. Now, if you remember from the footage, you saw the Grand Heraldric Cache. It actually had a buff symbol above it. And so opening the cache will give you that buff, and you can carry that buff through the end of your Nightmare Dungeon run and get a bonus on the rewards that you'll get there. Now, let's talk about escalating nightmares a little bit. By far, the biggest amount of feedback was, feels pretty rewarding, but way, way, way too easy. So, we have gone and made it more difficult.
Did it
we
feel
have
rewarding?
scaled the difficulty
Did
by
it feel
several
rewarding?
pit tiers every floor you advance.
About that.
So just naturally, things are going to get harder, and you're going to have to push a little bit more and more. We've increased the amount of health and damage for Exalted Astaroth and the Amalgam. We have made some of those existing negative affixes a bit meaner. We've also resurrected and tweaked some of the previous negative affixes that launched with the base game. And finally, I mean, really, we just did a whole audit on our negative affixes, but we created a bunch of new negative affixes as well, including some pretty fun ones, we think.
Hopefully they didn't bring back the ones that were just like...
Let us know what you think, of course, about the difficulty
fire damage,
of that moving forward.
you do 50% less fire damage
we want to make
and
sure
stuff like that, right? The ones that were specific
really
to builds. It just made your build worse.
Other things real quick that we did.
Specifically.
So we boosted the scalable rewards to match the increase in difficulty. So as things are getting more difficult, we still want to make sure that the rewards are keeping up, that we don't tip in the other direction. It was a little hard to notice the gizmo that's on the floor that allows you to jump to the next dungeon, so we just opened the portal automatically, which you saw in the footage. The escalating sigil didn't stand out enough, so it's got a beam now. It's got its own art, so that feels pretty good. And then finally, we had asked a question during the PTR. You know, do folks want to have to wait until Torment 1 in order to be able to do escalating nightmares? And we heard from you, and you said, no, we don't want to wait. And we agree. So we actually created a pre-Torment version of the Escalating Sigil. It's not as rewarding because you're not in Torment. And it won't feature the Astaroth boss fight at the end. The Astaroth boss fight, the Exalted version, has been tuned specifically for Torment. So we wanted to make sure that that was preserved.
That's totally fun.
But still, you should get a good sense of escalation
right,
pre-Torment
let's go to the skills
if you're lucky enough to encounter one
of
those as you're leveling up to 60. And that's it for the list here.
Good. Let's go to the skills now.
Please keep giving us feedback. We love to hear from you, and we want to keep improving the game. So back over to you guys in Irvine.
Fantastic. Thanks for walking us through that, Dan. And yeah, I mean, it's been, we had the PTR early in June, so it's been a while since we had it, but yeah, we received such a ton of great feedback.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, Dan, like, it sounds awesome. Like, the strong rooms are punchier, the escalating nightmares are more nightmarish, and, you know, Dan made a great point too. Like, those are going to be permanent additions to both, excuse me, Eternal and Seasonal realms. So we do really want your feedback on that because it is going to be an iterative and then permanent process, permanent part of the game. So we do want to tweak it where possible and get those in there.
Yeah, it's super important that we get the new Nightmare Dungeon stuff and the escalating nightmares really down well. because we want it to be a repeatable thing that you're doing pretty consistently in your experience. So when you are doing that kind of stuff fairly consistently, it needs to feel like really punchy. It needs to feel really smooth. So it will be a very iterative process. We will be taking a look at more feedback coming in and probably making additional improvements to it over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dan will be coming back for Q&A at the end of the stream, so we will be grabbing your questions then. And I did want to call out Mac Hayes from chat when Dan was going through the Heraldic Strom runes, said, "Blast me up, Dan." So love to see that. Love to see that in chat.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, in terms of more changes coming down the pipe, probably our biggest, most substantial part of the patch notes is always the balance changes that we have coming in. So Charles Dunn, take us to the promised land. What balance changes
finally.
do you have for us?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about all the class
After
updates that we did
30 minutes
for
of
Season
fluff.
9. And so my section, I'll be talking about some of the new stuff that came in that you may have seen on the PTR, but also talking about some of the adjustments we've made since the PTR. Some of the learnings, some of the feedback we've gotten, and how we've iterated since then. So at a high level, there's a few broader initiatives that we've done that really affect all classes in some ways that we're doing here for Season 9.
Yeah, this is just reiterating what they did
on
in
the
PTR.
PTR was a basic skill buff. Listed about basically every basic skill in the game, and most of them were buffed rather dramatically. Some of them 2 or 3x their damage.
Lunging strike is a thing now.
The impetus here was that we wanted to look kind of comprehensively at the game as a whole, the wider balance, and think, you know, are basic skills really fitting where they should in terms of their overall damage output and how they fit into builds, and really they were just like well behind the curve.
Yeah.
We want them to feel much more impactful, be a bit more, feel better when you first get them, but also be easier to kind of build around as you go and build up your character. We buffed up the baseline versions of a lot of these skills, but we did take a look at some of the legendary and unique aspects that interacted with them. Our goal wasn't to be like, oh, basic skill builds, kind of like we saw with Spiritborn and a Barb in the past. We didn't want those to be like, oh, here, this is we're making them the new meta.
Yeah.
This is more around.
Oh, why not? For one season, let's not
rebalancing the whole game
earthquakes.
as a whole, and we started with basic skills, trying to establish a firm
Next season,
power
core
budget for them.
skills.
And we're going
Trust.
to be looking and doing these kind of passes on other categories of skills, such as core skills, ultimates, etc.
Core
In
skills.
future seasons, that's gonna be
Finally.
like an area of focus for us moving
Next
forward.
season,
We're just starting
trust.
here with basic skills.
Yeah,
They'll
it's like
be
a help course,
fixed.
really on basic skills, and we'll be taking more looks at more categories.
Right. With the from the PTR, one big thing we noticed was that Pain Gorger's Gauntlets, one of the unique items that really empowers these basic skill builds, was definitely not living up to its billing. It didn't crit or overpower whenever its damage kind of echoed out, and it's supposed to be like a multiplier on your basic skill damage, but really it fell a lot short. So we've made an update so that now Pain Gorger's Gauntlets is going to be able to crit and overpower just like your basic skill damage. So that should definitely be a huge boon to those types of builds.
Yes.
Speaking of overpower, though, overpower was
Fine, okay.
overpowered, and we have done some nerfs to it. For the past few seasons, overpower-based builds have been definitely dominating the top of the meta, and it was definitely crowding out builds that really couldn't utilize that, things like dot-based builds or others.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, on the PTR, we tested an 80% reduction in the additive damage calculation of overpower. Not to get too in the weeds here, but there's kind of like an additive amount of damage that's based on how much fortified life and maximum life you have built up. We've just removed that completely. We tried an 80% reduction in what it was, and we decided it's still too strong, it's still too complicated, and we just removed that portion. So now when you overpower, you're going to do up to 50% bonus damage, just like a critical strike, but that's kind of going to be the end of the calculation there. We still anticipate, if you really want to, the biggest damage number hits are still going to be when you crit and overpower at the same time, but it's not going to be that you must overpower or else nothing else matters.
Right.
It's just going to be in that same kind of bucket as critical strikes.
Yeah, there's a certain point where something becomes so powerful that occurs, where it's like, if you didn't do that, then nothing else matters. And that starts to kind of erode the whole game experience.
Yes. And finally, we did a pass on all the key passives in the game. Much like the basic skill kind of audit that we did, we looked at all the key passives and really wanted to look at some of the
Did you
ones
look
that
at the
were,
barbarians,
like
perhaps?
outliers. They caused some of our builds that were 10, 100x stronger than other builds. A lot of times that came down to key passives that were scaling or interacting in ways that gave you far more benefit than some other key passives on other classes. And so some of those ones that had kind of that uncapped scaling, we added in caps to make sure that they don't get completely completely out of control, and ones that were like definitely underperforming, we did some rather substantial buffs to them to help bring them up to kind of parity across the board. So definitely I'll be touched on that a little bit later as we get into individual classes. So let's get on to the individual classes, starting with Barbarian.
Obviously.
So our goals for Barbarian this season is definitely a meta refresh on exactly the Barbarian meta. For the past few seasons, we've seen a lot of Earthquakes, a lot of Dust Devils, a lot of the summons being really dominant. And those are cool, but a lot of the Barbarian's core fantasy is around hitting people with weapons. And so we decided, okay, we need to do some nerfs to Earthquakes and some of those other effects that aren't quite as physical, hitting with weapons, and buff up things like Whirlwind and Hammer of the Ancients that are a lot more core to Barbarians, base fantasy.
Absolutely.
Whirlwind buffs.
With that in mind, we also got the new unique item, the Hooves of the Mountain God. Let's take a look at that here. This is the new unique boots item that is going to allow your basic skills, which I just talked about, to cleave. So once you hit maximum fury, you're going to start rapidly draining that fury, and while you're in kind of this draining state, your basic skills are going to cleave and do massively increased damage. And luckily, you're spamming out your basic skills. That is going to restore your fury and is allow you to keep in this state as long as you stay in combat and stay fighting enemies.
Yeah, and what I really love about this specific unique is that typically you try to solve your resource in a build, but with this, you try to stack as much of it as possible, so you can stay in the mountain god state or whatever you want to call it as long as possible.
Yeah, and you got to stay in combat. You got to stay hitting people with your basic skills to keep it going. It's really quite powerful, and I think it'll really enable some of those basic skill builds that we were talking about, especially with the
strike build
gauntlets.
Yeah.
We've got a clip of this in action. Barb walks up to a big old pack of skeletons, hits them with bash. Good old bash skill cleaving through the hordes and throwing them against the side of the canyon here. Yes, very good. A new unique to enable basic skill builds. Not just bash, all of the basic skills will cleave with this. So find out which one works best for you.
Yeah.
Frenzy strike.
Can I hear any frenzy enjoyers?
Yeah, indeed. All right, let's move on to Druid here. So the Druid updates this season.
Okay, all the class changes are done. Don't worry about it.
A main skill that we wanted to look at. I'll get more into that as we talk about the Rotting Lightbringer in a moment, the new unique that talks with Pulverize. But ever since the PTR, we also realized that it was still underperforming in baseline, so we've done some buffs to Pulverize just its raw damage output, as well as refactored some of the upgrades on it just to move around that to better work with the build with Rotting Lightbringer. But it wasn't just that. We also did a variety of other buffs on Druid. We know that Druid has historically, for the past handful of seasons, been probably the worst class in the game, certainly in terms of representation, how many people are playing it, how late into the end game, how strong they're getting. It's definitely fallen behind the pack.
Yes.
And so with that in mind, we've done buffs to a wide variety of the Druid builds. I can't just say any particular buff. It's a handful of legendaries and uniques and skills. They got buffed up just to bring the whole class up a little bit. So let's take a look at that Rotting Lightbringer, that new unique. We did see this on the PTR, but it has been rather substantially reworked since then. We heard a lot of feedback that it wasn't quite as usable, it wasn't as good as it could be. So the new version of Rotting Lightbringer says that if no puddle is around you, then Pulverize is going to form a puddle of poison that guarantees its own overpower and deals a massive amount of its normal damage as poisoning over time.
Yeah, this is really excellent because you can just go around and just make a bunch.
Yes, it is no longer tied. It used to have like a 10-second cooldown, which felt really bad, where you would try to Pulverize and you're like, oh, the cooldown's not up, and then you move to the next pack and it doesn't work. It was very, it didn't work as well as you had hoped.
Yeah.
So with this new update, it should definitely work quite a bit better. And every time you do Pulverize, all of the puddles around you are going to splash some of their damage, because what's better than splashing poison all around?
That's kind of insane.
A new version of Rotting Lightbringer in action. So you run up, you form a puddle, you move off to the side, you make a
over
second
60% like there, right?
And every time that you Pulverize
up to like
all of
70
your
or
existing puddles,
something.
you're gonna do that little splash of
It's
AoE
better than an amulet.
some more damage.
Yeah, so when you're in a room with just a ton of monsters, or like a
That's
strong
kind of
room,
insane.
for example, you can just go around and make a bunch and have some fun in the sun. Or not the sun, because I guess you're in the dark dungeon.
Yeah, it is a
The hell?
nightmare dungeon.
I guess you don't have multiple weapons,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
still.
nice, wonderful.
Okay, let's move on to the Necromancer.
Probably much better than the
Necromancer,
Flatamon.
similar to
guess.
Druid, had a variety of buffs, specifically to Golem builds, Bone builds, and Shadow builds. Some of these builds were definitely falling behind the rest of the pack on Necromancer and compared to other classes in the game. So we've done a handful of buffs to those builds since the PTR to bring them up and really help to make them a bit more competitive. Two of the outliers on Necromancer from last season were Soul Rift and Bloodwave, two of their ultimate skills that just were, Soul Rift in particular just did way too much for any one skill. Obviously it dealt damage, but then it gave you a barrier, it gave you resource, it gave you damage, increased all of your other damage output, refilled your potions, and feared enemies. So that's a lot of things for one skill to do. And we love ultimates doing a lot,
Yeah,
but
potentially.
that was kind of one thing too many.
Yeah.
So on this season, we've removed the barrier generation from Soul Rift, and so if you want to get really
Like
tanky as a
the
Necromancer, you're going to have
from
to
what
look
I've
for
heard,
some alternate
Necromancers
sources
are
to
fuming
make yourself
right
a little
now.
tankier, alternate barrier sources as well.
Yeah, we want to give you
Good.
all the tools you need to
Stay
solve
mad.
your problems. But we don't want you to solve all your problems through one of your tools.
Right. Yeah, Soul Rift was just doing a little bit too much for that. And that's why it was, kind of so dominant, so popular.
Yeah.
Bloodwave, another ultimate skill as well. That just did a ton of
Nerf
damage.
to the ground,
Its damage
please,
output
yes.
was exceptionally high.
Yes.
Okay,
I think
respectfully,
part of
that thing
due
was
to
just
the
crashing my
overpowered,
freaking
being so
instances, okay?
overpowered. And so some of the nerfs there would
Okay,
probably
not
bring that
quite
down in
crashing,
size.
but still.
So we expect
It was a pain in
Bloodwave
the
to-
ass.
to
It was
hopefully
lagging
not
the
be
server.
the absolute dominant way of playing Necromancer, and we hope that some of those other builds like Golem, Bone, and Shadow have a few other ways of playing. We've also got the new unique, the Hand of Nas. This is a pretty cool new way of playing the class, specifically Minion Necromancer. Let's take a look. So the Hand of Nas gives you more skeleton mages. So if you go all in on your mages, you sacrifice your warriors, you sacrifice your golems, you can now summon additional mages for each minion that you sacrificed. So you can have far more mages than before.
Yes.
And just like any good RPG, your skeleton mages can get experience and level up.
Yeah,
So
let's go.
they attack 25 times, then they get to level up to a skeleton archmage. And when they're in the archmage form, they are harder to kill. They're going to teleport around to safety if they get attacked, and their attacks are going to occasionally shatter and deal bonus damage to the target and nearby enemies. We can take a look at this in action.
I don't play
You've got your
Necro, but
big ol'
honestly, this looks so
backline,
good.
A ton of mages. You won't have your skeleton warriors. You won't have your golem if you really want to maximize.
You just have
your
to be
mages.
the tank
So that
for
really
the
puts
team,
you,
though,
the
but-
Necromancer, as kind of being the front line for your army of minions. Kind of turns the traditional minion necro on its head a bit, whereas your minions are often the front line for you. And then you pump out the damage. In this kind of build, you're going to be the front lines trying to keep the enemies off your mages while they pump out the DPS from the back line.
Yeah, really, this makes it so you have a college of mages, one could say. And mages aren't the greatest at tanking, so, you got to figure that out yourself.
All right, we've got the Rogue up next. So the Rogue, we did some updates to Death Trap and Shadow Clone in this season. So much like Necromancer, where they had a couple of ultimate skills that were really dominant in the meta, specifically Death Trap and Shadow Clone on the Rogue. Death Trap was kind of like Soul Rift in a lot of ways, where it did a little bit too much of everything, did pull in, did damage, other damage increases. And the big problem with that from a balance standpoint was that it was very easy to be able to just hold down the Death Trap button and spam cast it.
Yeah.
That was due to a number of effects interacting to give you cooldown reduction on it and reset its cooldown, including whenever you overpowered or killed an enemy with it. It would help tick off some of that cooldown reduction. We've removed that functionality, so it's a little bit harder to get to that full zero cooldown Death Trap.
Whenever
If you are
they
still really
nerf
building your
something that
character
was
out,
just
you'll still be able to get
fucking
there.
up
It'll
the
still be a
servers,
part of a journey similar to that
I become
philosophy
happier.
on Soul Rift. We want you to be able to
Dude,
solve
I
these
just want to be able
problems,
to
but it
play
was
the
a
game
little
without
too easy to do it on
having
Death
like
Trap, and really
300
short-circuited
ping
the
sometimes,
progression
okay?
cycle of building up your character and,
Like,
and
come on.
feeling that growth and that strength.
I don't care. They need to get nerfed to
Shadow
the ground.
Clone
Nerf them even
was,
more. I
doing
don't
a
care.
ton
Until
of
they are
damage,
fixed.
much like Bloodwave. And it kind of went a little bit against the fantasy of, your Shadow Clone should be augmenting your strength, and it should be kind of mirroring your damage output. What in reality, based on what it was doing,
90% of the rogue builds were Shadow Clone, by the way.
It felt more like you were the
Like-
Shadow Clone.
Yes,
Me say.
it did feel like that. Shadow Clone mimics your effects, but it also changes some of the skill tags that it works with. So Shadow Clone is an ultimate skill. It is a cutthroat skill. So no matter what it's casting, that skill is an ultimate and cutthroat skill. It basically allowed it to access some extra
insane.
multipliers, some extra bonuses.
It's insane is what it
there's
is.
a kind of damage penalty on the Shadow Clone, and we've kind of increased that so it doesn't deal quite as much percentage damage, but is still a good modifier to your damage output. And we've also added some damage reduction component to it. So the Shadow Clone kind of takes some of the hits for you, right? Takes some of your damage and gives you that damage reduction instead. We talked about key passive earlier. Victimize is a key passive on Rogue that we have reworked. It was one of those ones that was either like super weak or super strong, depending on the precise tuning. And it really was struggled to get that into to balance it well against other options. Right. And so we've done a rework here where it's damaging vulnerable enemies is going to cause them to do a burst of damage, but then you also deal multiplicative increased damage to those targets after you burst, you trigger that victimize effect on them. And we think this will get it to a much healthier state where it's like more consistently useful rather than all or nothing. And the new unique for Rogue this season is the Death Mask of Nirmatrek. And this one works with your flurry builds. Let's take a look here. So the Death Mask, you can now overexert yourself while casting Flurry. And what does that mean? That is a new term to Diablo 4. It means that if you don't have enough energy, you're going to spend life instead to cast your Flurry. And when you do spend life to cast Flurry, it's going to increase its damage and your attack speed rather substantially for a period of time. So you do get to go real fast, attack real quick, but be warned, the faster you attack without any energy, the more life you're spending, the closer to death you're going to get.
It's called a Death Mask for a reason.
Right, we've got a clip of this in
You either find a way to not have the
through,
negative affect you, or you don't play it.
Flurry super fast, even when you are out of energy, and now your life total is going to start draining the more flurries you cast.
Like, you realistically never play it like this, right?
It's so ludicrous.
It is a great clip. Really embodies that like fast, stabby, frantic style.
It looks cool,
are known
right?
for.
Yeah.
You're just having everything,
I love
but
how this, like, turns your build crafting options on its head. Typically, you want to get, give me tons of resource generation. But you don't necessarily want that here, right? You want to be on low resource so that you can trigger the spending life.
Yes and no. You want to be able to trigger it, but after you trigger it for the next 5 seconds, you don't want to have resource problem, right?
It won't actually kill you, but it can bring you down to about 8% life, at which point pretty much anything else will kill you.
It will certainly help you die, that's for sure.
Aizen, you were talking about running this on hardcore for next season, right?
I was. I might be a little crazy.
Crazy? I was crazy once.
All right, let's move on to the Sorceress.
Room full of rat.
So the Sorceress,
made me
we've
crazy.
got updates here.
I still have Sarkin Spirit Barn.
Lightning Spear had been kind of dominating the Sorceress meta for quite a while. It was like
it was
really the premier build for a long time.
An insane bug.
This had a really interesting
Multiple
situation
bugs,
where out of the box, Lightning Spear was kind of terrible, right?
Yes.
You look at this skill and you're like, okay, how much damage does it do? How many enemies does it hit? What's its cooldown? And you're like, oh, this is awful. Like, it doesn't do anything. And then you get Splintering Energy, the legendary aspect, and suddenly it goes from nothing to best skill in the game.
Yeah, and we don't want skills out of the box to feel useless.
And what was happening is that every time you enter the pit, it could either, it had a 1 in 33 chance
either the base skill or
to
the aspect.
either overpower every time or never overpower. So you just fished for that 1 in 33, and then you just overpower the whole dungeon. And as you know, overpower got a massive nerf this season for a reason.
Legendary
It's super
and brought that
strong.
down rather substantially. To be clear here, our goal is still that Lightning Spear, we do not want it to be the best way of playing Sorceress. It has had its time in the sun for a few seasons now. It's really been, I think it's time for some other options to rise up and be like some of the stronger builds on Sorceress. We still want it to be a viable way to play. We don't want to completely kill it to nothing, but it shouldn't be the absolute dominant or strongest way to play here Sorceress moving forward. To that point, we've updated Icefall and Firestarter. Icefall is a legendary Paragon node that works with your Frost skills. Those cold skills are going to do quite a bit more damage with this. It's just some numerical buffs there. And the Firestarter, that's a legendary aspect that works with your flame skills. You know, the other 2 builds outside of Lightning on Sorceress. Firestarter previously just did kind of a chunk of moderate fire damage, but wasn't anything special. Now it also gives you multiplicative fire damage, which is really good if you are picking, say, the Fire Infusion Catalyst for your Heraldric Spellcraft.
Oh, true. Or some crazy new unique that might be making its way into.
Yeah, a crazy unique like the Ophidian Iris.
Oh, whoa.
Let's take a look at the Ophidian Iris. This is the new unique
This unique is busted as hell, okay?
Into a core skill, and it's always going to summon a 3-headed Hydra, and those Hydra's attacks explode on impact. Now, previously, you could build up effects that gave you more heads to your Hydra.
Okay, it gives you the core skill tag, which is great.
Would have had.
It gives you a molt.
Grows in size and deals multiplicatively more
It
damage.
has a passive that's
We
quite
tested this
good.
out on the PTR,
And it
one
has
of the big
intelligence.
points of feedback was that there's kind of 2 ways of building Hydra. You can
It
build
has
with more
great
crit focus,
stats
like crit and fire,
by
or more
itself.
burning damage focus.
Yeah.
And previously,
A great multiplier, just 100 would be great.
Really
But this
tried
is
to
not
force you into
100.
the critical strike
This
version
ends
of
up
the
being
build.
like
And
over
we updated them
1,000
here,
molt.
So we removed that critical strike chance and added
It's
attack speed, which is good for both,
insanity, right?
and changed the ranks of the passive over to Primordial Binding, which is once again good for both, rather than giving you the critical strike pyromancy effect. Just being a bit more generic and allow you to play it whichever way you like and kind of equally support it. Let's take a look at this clip of the
It got
before and
nerfed
after
and I
in
think
terms
it's still
of
broken
size.
as hell.
So on the left, you got your little piddly normal-sized Hydra. If you build up a whole bunch of bonus Hydra heads, you get the big boy Hydras on the right, whose attacks explode on impact. Obviously, they deal a ton more damage. They kill the enemies much faster. And it just looks a lot bigger and a lot more visually impressive.
They are absolute units.
They really are. You get to become a Hydra parent. And also, honestly, I've never felt bad for a Cosred test dummy before, but I feel kind of bad for this guy.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to playing with this one
Yes.
on next season.
Yeah, this will
probably
be,
still gonna be
this is
broken.
exactly what will be ready for
Lucky.
Season 9 trials.
That's sweet. All right, let's move on to the final class, Spiritborn. So for Spiritborn this
Finally.
season, we've looked
Okay.
at updating the Razor Wings build. That's a build that has had some support, but never really quite got there. We've made some adjustments to some of the legendaries and that
Enter
affect that
chances
build to really help
reverted.
bring it
All
up
right.
and make it a bit more
Weird champ.
robustly supported. I want to talk a little bit about the Hunter. That's the Jaguar ultimate skill. We tested a change on the PTR where we so currently on season 8. And ever since it's launched, it had this mechanic where if you kill an enemy while the Hunter is active, it has a chance to reset its cooldown completely. So if you get lucky and you get a lot of kills, you can kind of spam cast Hunter until you, until you miss, basically.
Right.
We tested out a change on the PTR where instead of doing that, it would just give a more consistent amount of cooldown reduction. And this was, we heard loud and clear that that is not fun. It was really not what you wanted. Players really liked that kind of feast or famine version of Hunter, where it had that gameplay texture of constantly resetting and that mini game of making sure you maximize the number of kills for the short duration that it's active.
Yeah, it had really it evolved into like a core part of the spirit of the Jaguar, and we don't want to have to take that away.
Right. So this is one of the great things about testing these types of changes on PTR is that we're allowed to make these a bit like more dramatic changes, and then if they don't work out, we'll revert them. And so in this case, we decided to revert
Good on
those
them, you
changes
know?
back
Good
to
on
what
them,
it
I
was
guess.
before.
Good on them.
Now, for context, the reason we tried to do that change in the first place was that the Hunter was by far the most popular ultimate skill on Spiritborn. I think something like 90+% of Spiritborn players were using the
Lol.
Hunter. And that's not really healthy for build diversity. And we thought, okay, if we adjust its cooldown mechanic, that will be what we need to change. So instead, we looked at some numerical adjustments.
they really
to it,
need
so
to
it
go
doesn't have quite
faster.
as many bonuses whenever
I need
it
to
does
sleep.
function, but
Okay,
it still functions
I-
the same as before.
I've been awake almost
And in order
24
to
hours
promote
now.
more
I
diversity,
need to
we've
sleep.
buffed up the other ultimate skill options. The other 3 Spirit Guardians now will give you other ways of giving multiplicative damage whenever you have them active. The Devourer will give you multiplicative poison damage. The Gorilla Ultimate, the Protector, will give you bonus damage while you stand in his area that he's pounding down on, gives you that area of power. And the Seeker, the Eagle Ultimate, will give you guaranteed critical strikes while it's active.
Awesome.
And finally, we've got the new unique item, a Balazan's Max Latel. We've got.
This looks
working on that.
broken, by the way.
So good.
Been working on that one. Nailed it. All right, so Balazan's Max Latel. We've got. Let's take a look at that. This is the new Pants unique. It triggers your
Each
when you
attack damage close
who are
enemies for your
it'll
turn?
trigger your
That's
thorns
insane.
damage as poisoning damage. So it's like poison and thorns combination here. And every time that you've retaliated with thorns, so you've got
By the way,
hit
this
recently, then that
was
poisoning damage is going to
revealed
increase.
after they
I really
said
love
on
this, right?
the
Because
stream
it
that they
speaks to the
didn't want
spirit
to
of
have
thorns, which is like, I
damage
must be hit, and then I retaliate.
aspect
Right.
But, like,
on pens and
expands
stuff
on
like
which is
that,
really
like
cool.
the
Yeah, and
Emeritus,
it
right?
gives you more consistent
Not
value.
the
Like, if
Emeritus,
you're
the
not
Vaults,
getting
right?
hit, your thorns was
And then
worthless.
they
Now
revealed
you've got the
this, which
thorns
is even
still
worse,
positive,
even stronger, I
offensive
mean.
value, even if you're not getting hit. But of course, getting hit and triggering those thorns is going to get you even stronger. On the PTR, this was definitely very powerful.
Very powerful.
Very, very strong. We did adjust its numbers down quite substantially. The percentage of thorns converted has been reduced. We still expect this to be a very powerful build, but you know it's gotten brought down a notch or two because
If
it was
Thorns
by
is
far
good,
the
this
most
will
powerful
be
build that
with
we
this
saw
will be
on
used,
PTR.
basically.
All right, we've got a clip of this in action here. Right, so you're standing in the middle, you're getting hit, you're clicking your defensive skills so that you can survive, and then once you get hit and stack that up, you can go around and apply bonus poisoning thorns damage to all of the enemies around you.
Those idiots. Why are they even hitting you?
I don't know. All right, and so that covers all of the class updates. Once again, make sure you check out the patch notes after.
I will
this,
give them
live
to
stream
me
here. Check out the
right
blog.
now.
It's got all of the details. I kind of glossed over some of them because there's so many details to go into.
That's a lot.
Go and check those out for all of the very specific changes that we're making come Season 9, and can't wait for you to see to try out all of these new effects.
Woo! Thank you for that, Charles. Take a bow. Yeah, the patch notes are absolutely massive this season. They won't be hitting in all languages following the stream. We're looking to have those published just prior to the start of the season on July 1st. So some languages will be available, but expect most of them towards the start of the season because the patch notes are absolutely massive. So like Charles said, dive into them, get those changes, and Charles, can we get that Spiritborn unique name one more time?
Balazan's Max Latel.
Balazan's
Max Latel.
Heard it here first. The man's a pro. The man's a pro. So as we've
That's
gone through the
easy to
stream,
say.
we've got all these great components from Season 9 coming through. We've got the Project Strong Rooms, we've got Escalating Nightmares,
Right.
we have all these excellent balance changes
Okay.
and class updates coming in. So it feels like we've got this nice cake, and we just need a little bit of frosting and some sprinkles just to finish it
What
up.
about the
So I
sherry?
know,
Do we get
Aizen,
sherry?
You've got some nice little tidbits
Right.
to get into towards
Sherry?
the end in terms of system updates. So what can we look forward to in Season 9?
Yeah, so not only have we done all these awesome, specific Season 9 things, we've also done our best to improve the game eternally or in an evergreen fashion or permanently, however you want to say it. So yeah, a big thing that we learned from Season 8 is that we really like it when we feel
Layer
like we have
Horde,
different
what
ways we
is
can play the
that?
season. So in Season 8 specifically, you went into the Apparition
The
Incursions,
Infernal
and it
Horde?
sometimes ended up feeling while you were leveling like you had to do it a bit more than you actually wanted to. Like you'd rather go do some other things.
Oh,
And
it's
so
the
way we
chest
wanna
you
change
open
that
once you
in
kill the
Season 9
bosses,
and
right?
going forward forever is elites and bosses are now going to grant seasonal reputation regardless of what the season is. It doesn't matter what the season theme is. You can always make progress towards reputation by killing those strong enemies. So that should make it so it doesn't matter if you're going to the seasonal activity.
I know, if you're already farming 1,000 bosses, might as well get some reputation for it, for your trouble.
Fantastic source of that specific seasonal power and rep and currency and what have you. But we want you to feel like you can just take some detours and explore the game at your own pace and in your own way.
Hopefully
And
introduce
the
a way
season
to
still
convert
recognises
that currency,
And similarly, we
that
had
reputation.
Layer Hordes grant seasonal currency in Season 8 specifically because it was the season of bosses, but we decided to just keep that going forward because basically all roads lead to layer bosses now. Like you're going to find layer keys by doing a variety of activities. And so it felt like a very ubiquitous place for us to imbue seasonal currency into the game as well. And this isn't to say, this isn't an exhaustive list, right? Oh, I gotta wave over here. This isn't an exhaustive list. You are still gonna be earning extra seasonal reputation and seasonal currency from doing seasonal specific stuff too. So it should just be a much larger pool of ways to play. But yeah, so with that said, let's jump into some of the permanent details or permanent changes and details of the Nightmare Dungeon and Escalation Nightmare systems. So Dan already went over this quite a bit.
There's one that
but
gives
I
you
wanted
like
to
10
just talk a
goblins
little
per
bit more
dungeon,
about
by the way, which is
why
really
and
cool,
how
but
of
like
this
omega
all.
rare.
So we added a bunch of new affixes, positive affixes to Nightmare Dungeons. And the reason why we wanted to do
The
this
XP one's
is because we
gonna
wanted
be
to
really
make
good
sure
leveling as
that
well.
when you're sifting through your different Nightmare Dungeons, it feels like you have different options for how you can make progress for your economy. So you'll notice that these blue affixes, like the Herodic Materials Reserve, Gem Reserve, Gold
Sorry.
Reserve, they're pretty
I'm
self-explanatory.
really sleepy.
If you go into those dungeons, you are going to get more materials from the chests that appear, or more gems, or more gold. And there's quite a few of these different positive affixes. And the big impetus behind this is we really wanted you to be able to sift through your Nightmare Dungeons, find the gap in what you're currently looking for. Like, for example, if you want to craft a Herodic Jewel and you need gem fragments, go find the Herodic Gem Reserve Nightmare Dungeons and run a bunch of them. And so hopefully this is like a tool that you guys can utilize and really patch up those problems. And secondarily, we also know that if players are going to be going into Nightmare Dungeons much more frequently going forward, that there should probably be a lot of replayability and variety in the negative affix experience too, so it kind of feels a little different and cool. So we really took our time. We kind of rebranded, rethemed a bunch of the affixes. We added a bunch of new ones, like Dark Omen is specifically an entirely new one. So be careful going into one of those dungeons. And we also added many more of the potential elite affix, the elite affixes that can appear on Nightmare Dungeons, like for example, Waller, Vampiric is another one. And this is all just, again, to make Nightmare Dungeons feel like there's more variety as you're playing through all of them. Awesome.
Keep going.
So yeah,
Keep
I
going.
think we
On
can
patch note.
go forward here and check out what a actual Herodic Reserve looks like. Just as a PSA, so if you go in and you're chomping through a Nightmare Dungeon, that's what a Herodic Reserve will look like. So there will be a bunch of those throughout a Nightmare Dungeon. Make sure to open all those to get your.
Some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller, by the way.
And then on
Some
top
of them
that,
are
of course,
harder
we have the new
to spot.
permanent addition, the Escalating Sigils, which are just Nightmare Dungeons, but even punchier. So, as Dan was saying, we made it so you're getting even more rewards from these things as you're escalating. They're going to raise in difficulty as you go through each escalation, which I would like to point out does mean that you can surpass Torment 4 with these now, which can get very terrifying. And there's also unique affixes that can only appear on Escalating Sigils. And here we have the actual Astaroth affix, or rather the Astaroth list of affixes that we're going to be dealing with when we fight Astaroth. So Dan kind of alluded to this, but we can see that one of the negative affixes here is Meteor Storm. That's an Astaroth-specific affix, and that actually changes the way the Astaroth fight works. And there are quite a few of these. So every time you go in and fight Astaroth, it's going to feel a little different. There's going to be different challenges you have to face. And there's also going to be a lot of really fantastic rewards that he drops too. Like, for example, the Riches of Keys gives you, I think, like Infernal Compasses and Undercity Tributes. And Lord Zier's Offering gives you quite a few keys to go and fight Lord Zier. And, it's all modular, it's all randomized, and it's a lot. It's a lot of rewards, which is great. But it's a lot harder too, which is also fun. But yeah, so that's the overall on these Nightmare Dungeon and Escalating Sigil things. And I just want to say, as one last thing, like I mentioned before, this is something that we want to continuously improve upon because it is such a major new thing. And like, we knew that Nightmare Dungeons needed some love, and we're really happy we got the opportunity to do that here. And we want to continue to foster and cultivate the system going forward. So please, any more feedback you have, shoot it our way.
Okay, doing that now.
All right, and with all that said, let's move on to some more general quality of life updates to the game as a whole. So first of all, here we have the legendary item drop updates. So typically in Diablo 4, what we've done is when you go up in Torment tiers, you find more items, but we've decided to make it so you also find a higher quality of items when you go up in Torment tiers as well. This means that as you go from Torment 1 to 2 to 3,
This was not in the
4,
PTR, I believe.
you are going to find more ancestral items and thus also more greater affixes. We wanted to do this because we were finding that people on higher Torment tiers, as characters were getting to 2 and 3, etc., the loot wasn't quite keeping up with the state their character was in and what they expected to receive. And so we're trying this out, and let us know what you think. And I just wanted to do a quick call out that this also applies to lair bosses. Like, it applies to everything, but I wanted to specifically call out that it applies to lair bosses, which is great because now we're going to be finding more ancestral versions of lair boss unique items too. All right, let's move on to the resource economy. There's quite a few of these here. So first of all, we saw that people were not finding as many legendary runes as they would like. It felt too sluggish to get through that journey. So we've kind of
Might
done
actually
quite a
get
few changes
a
to
back
that
rune
overall.
before I get
Now
to
the
Paragon
Tribute of Harmony,
200,
which
you
is
know?
specifically the tribute that grants quite a few runes, will grant even more and a higher quality of runes. All Undercity tributes, not just the Tribute of Harmony, will also grant runes. So if you're finding yourself light on runes, going to Undercity is typically a really good place. And then finally, we also increased the quality chance, the chance for legendary runes to drop from fighting lair bosses and their lair boss horde too. So just kind of all throughout the game, that's just a bit better. We've made quite a few improvements to Whisper caches. So like the gold cache is much more lucrative, the material cache is more lucrative, the gem caches are more lucrative. A lot of ancillary stuff just feels better and are better choices than they used to be. We want to make sure that when you're actually looking at the potential Whisper caches, that each of them feels like it would actually make a difference. And so that's the big impetus there. We have made our jewelers across Sanctuary adopt more business-friendly practices.
Yeah. God damn, they were expensive as hell.
Quite as ludicrously expensive, and it also
They're robbing you blind
significantly
before.
more rings and amulets, so they're a little bit nicer now. And then Infernal Hordes also is going to be dropping more gems. And then finally, something we wanted to add here is there's going to be increased drop rate for Scrolls of Escape, specifically in Hardcore. We found that you weren't getting quite as many as we would like you to in that mode.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that you have just enough to go and test yourself against those really challenging lair boss fights when you feel like your build is ready. All right, and let's dive into into our next slide here. So. This is just to go over, basically, this is a lot of information. So let's just talk briefly about what is permanent and what is exclusive to Season 9, just kind of as a recap. So, permanent to both the Eternal and Seasonal Realms, now and forever, we have the Nightmare Dungeon updates. So you are going to be finding Herodric Strong Rooms on both the Eternal and the Seasonal Realms. You're going to be able to go into escalating nightmares in both. You're going to find all these new Nightmare Dungeon affixes and escalating Nightmare affixes permanently in the game. And of course, all the new uniques for each class are permanent. And then exclusive to Season 9 is the quest line, Exploring the Sins of the Herodrum. The Herodric Spellcraft, the catalysts and the infusions and the arcana, the Herodric Jewels, and then, of course, the Seasonal Reputation Board and the rewards from that are exclusive to Season 9.
Go to the Q&A now.
All right, so that about wraps it up for the Evergreen updates here for Season 9. And just to kind of touch on the PTR and the learnings and kind of our thoughts and our culture on PTR. So we already kind of went over the systems updates that were changed since PTR. I'll go over them again very briefly. So lair bosses now have an increased chance to drop legendary runes. There's a increased drop rate to Scrolls of Escape in Hardcore, and there was the massive pass on all things Nightmare Dungeon to improve the tuning and make affixes meaner and stuff like that. But I just wanted to take a moment to say that the PTR for us as a team is just amazing. We really cannot stress this enough. Like, when the PTR goes live, you guys start talking about the game. The air in the office is electrifying. We're all so excited to see what you guys have to say, and we're just, we're running around, we're talking to each other, we're like, oh, like, this is, did you see this? Like, maybe we should change this, or, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just great. It's great for the vibes. It's great for the game. And just a heartfelt thank you from us to you for helping us make Diablo as good as it can possibly be.
For doing free labor.
Watching videos that people post or posting online on social media or other places for feedback on our forums. It's really amazing to see players like trying out the new stuff and giving feedback on what's working, what's not. And then we really do listen and adjust based on that. We try to find the best ways of delivering a really high quality experience every season. And the PTR is really instrumental for us to be able to do that.
It absolutely is. And like, this season was wild for PTR updates. We
Yeah.
made so many changes, and it was just super helpful to hear everything you guys had to say.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Like, being able to have players jump in, test the content, also gives us such a better feel for how things are going to go in season launch. So then we know we can take a confident step forward, knowing that our players who are just diehard Diablo 4 fans have given us their greatest feedback. And then when the season launches on July 1st, we now know that we already
Alright,
have
stop
all these problems
buttering
addressed,
us
we have
up,
bugs
come
that are
on.
taken care of, and even just like in terms of
Alright,
bugs and challenging, the unique
yeah.
that got entirely overhauled.
Yeah.
We now have that chance to make those changes ahead of time. So yeah, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for jumping in and testing and giving us all your feedback, because we appreciate it and it does make this game a whole lot better. So thank you for that. And that brings us closer to the end of our show. We've got some excellent Q&A lined up for you. So we're going to bring Dan back from Albany. And we do have a few questions
10 minutes
lined
of
up.
Q&A and
First
then we
thing,
get the
that
patch
we do want
note.
to ask our devs here is, for the Herodic Spellcraft, are those powers account bound? Are they partition bound? Or do you need to level them up specifically for each alt?
Yeah, so they're going to be partition bound. So on, for example, seasonal softcore, if you make a new character, you'll have all your progress from your previous seasonal softcore character. So it's partition bound. If you make a new seasonal hardcore character, you would have to find the new Herodic Spellcraft, but then any future seasonal hardcore character you make would have access to that same progression.
Awesome. Nice. Okay, we've got our first question coming in from the Sanctuary Discord. Getty asks,
let's go.
how does the team currently feel about boss design? Are invulnerable phases something you're looking to continue with in future bosses? And that's an interesting one, because the Astaroth fight that just came back does have some interesting mechanics that aren't quite invulnerability, but it's more of like a segmented phase. So.
Yeah, that's something that we've been talking about a lot internally, with the new changes to the layer bosses. I think it's something that we sometimes it's important, like it's cool for like the vibes of the fight if a boss has an invulnerability phase, but we also recognize that like once you get to a point where you feel like you can beat a boss, sometimes the invulnerability phase can feel
once
like
you kill the boss 100
obstacle,
times this
potentially an
season,
unwanted
it's
obstacle.
kinda
So the team has
annoying when
definitely
it
been
just
exploring some
makes
ways that we
makes
can
you take like
create that
30 extra
similar
seconds or a
feeling
minute to kill
without
them,
necessarily putting a hard stop on a fight.
Yeah, there's definitely some examples even already in the game where it's like, hey, if you're able to kind of beat a DPS check,
Overshield.
to get the boss like
Look
down
at
to a
last
certain
Epoch
amount, or
did.
kill it before the phase.
Just give a
then,
massive shield to the
you're
boss
able
if you
to do
that
That's
degens.
definitely
If you have
one
enough
good
damage, you can
example that we're
burst through it.
definitely,
If you don't,
looking at,
it's basically an
kind of
immunity
replicating
phase,
some other, boss fights.
Nice. Okay, Charmed Chaos. Does the strong room time count against the dungeon's completion time, or are they separate?
Dungeon completion time?
Dan, you want to take that one?
Is there a dungeon completion
I'm
time?
thinking about this right now, and I am not entirely certain. My guess is that it does count towards the dungeon completion time, but yeah, I think we're gonna have to, go back to the team and post.
Does that even matter though? Like, it's not like.
I guess it's it's a.
Are you speed running like the dungeons?
Like, are you
Hey.
identifying the logic of where you are in the dungeon, or I mean, you do blast through it pretty quick, which is good. But then, you might take your time leaving it or going back in to find some more goodies. So yeah, that's an excellent question. I've got another one from Why So Blue.
I don't
Panda
think it
Bear.
is.
Don't be sad, Panda Bear. At Diablo, do we still get Obdicite in these escalation nightmare dungeon
Yes.
runs?
Oh, yeah, you do.
You saw them
There's
drop
also
there.
even some, or not some, there is
There's-
an affix that increases the
gives
amount
you
of
more.
Obdicite you get. And again, also the
There's one that
escalating,
gives you chests that have
nightmare
Obdicite.
dungeon runs scale. So as you, or scale with rewards, excuse me.
The increased of the
but as you
site
go up
one
and up
was
and up, you
actually
just get
not
more
working on the
Obdicite
PTR.
and
Hopefully
the
it's
affixes
fixed.
become better. So
Yeah.
if you find like the extra Obdicite affix later on, it's like showering Obdicite. It's a lot.
That's unreal. That's absolutely unreal. This one's for you. Might be for Aislinn. The Bird King. Has anything been confirmed about GA or general greater affix rates going up at higher torment tiers?
Oh, yeah. So that slide we had
literally what
talking about
he
the
said,
increased
right?
quality per torment, they will be going up, yes. You're going to be finding more ancestral items, and so consequentially you're going to be finding more greater affix items and items with more greater affixes as well.
Unreal. Thank you for that, Aislinn. Scream Hard. At Diablo, question for Q&A. Will we start to see seasonal power systems incorporated into the base game? There have been several that I was fond of that could add depth.
Yeah, I can talk a bit about that. Obviously, every season when we make some of these powers, like the Heraldic Spellcraft or the Witchcraft powers and the boss powers in the past, they were exclusive to that season.
Yep.
That being said, we are a team with a bunch of designers who are always looking for good ideas, and especially good ideas that have proven to work in the game. And so we definitely, when we're looking at making future systems and future improvements to the game, we are absolutely looking at some of the best performing seasonal powers and thinking about how we can integrate that into the game. So it's very likely you'll see some of the better received and more popular seasonal powers potentially return in the future. But for the time being, they do still exist just in their season. But they are absolutely still on our radar to bring back in other forms and other ways for future content.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do love, even for the season overall, instead of having seasonal powers that we have, and then look at the favorite ones, such a massive part of the mechanics of this season are just already going to be permanent and in eternal and seasonal realms, which is so nice. So
it's true.
Yeah, really, just those power systems are really the seasonal parts, and a lot of our focus on seasonal development is plussing up base aspects of the game, like the Nightmare Dungeon system as a whole. We're looking at making sure that part of the game is improved and is evergreen. And then a lot of the powers are things that are exclusive for the season, but we are still looking out for good designs and ways of bringing back the popular ones for the future.
Hell yeah, absolutely, Charles. Mippy, at Diablo, are the escalating nightmare sigils craftable or only droppable? Important question for leveling. I think I might send that one to you, Dan.
Yeah, that's another one I'm not sure about, unfortunately.
So I believe they should only be able to drop from the Heraldic strong rooms. That's where you'll be finding escalation sigils.
Right. And I think
I just to the point, if you want to try to be farming them, you can craft nightmare sigils, trying to find ones that have the Heraldic strong room guaranteed on there.
Right.
And then run the ones with the strong room. So it's a little bit, you can't maybe craft them directly, but you can craft ways of farming them.
You can definitely go out of your way to find Heraldic strong rooms, which then brings you to escalation nightmares.
Yeah, and if you're looking for those pre-torment nightmare escalation sigils, you're going to be getting that from the seasonal reputation track. So before you are pre-torment, if you want to play those and get used to them before you actually get to face off against Astaroth in post-torment levels, you will be getting that from the seasonal reputation track. So look out for those. The Creether, cool name.
Ooh.
How do you come up with the names for your uniques? Some of them are really interesting, and some are hard to pronounce.
That's true.
Are the names coming from lore, or just, did you find something cool that ended up fitting with the names?
A lot of times they come from a lore. A lot of our uniques are handled by our wonderful narrative designers and quest designers who really have a firm grip on the lore and the world building of Sanctuary and all of the characters and factions within there. And so a lot of them do come from that. Some of them are a bit, maybe a bit more generic. I'd say ones that maybe don't tie to a specific person, but a lot of them do, and that's handled by our wonderful narrative and quest designers.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, like Death Mask of near my truck.
Near my truck,
Yeah.
Yeah. Chat was picking up also on the phonetic of "it's near my truck."
Oh yeah, it's near my truck.
That is how we've
been saying
near
that
my
a lot.
truck, yes.
leading up to this stream. Awesome. Okay. Oh, Draketh 90. Will you consider allowing other boss fights to be customized with affixes like Astaroth? Sounds like a cool way to keep layered bosses dynamic and fresh.
Oh yeah, we're really excited about the system with Astaroth, where he's going to feel different each time you fight him. So that's
I think we're just gonna go in and
we
kill
are
him.
always looking to imbue more replayability into the game, because
Sure.
Diablo is just lives and dies by how much fun it is to go and do stuff over and over. And so that's definitely something that we can take a look at in the future, and different mechanics to ensure that fighting layer bosses or fighting other bosses in the game feel exciting and different each time you go in and fight them. And Astaroth is a great example of that, and we're excited for you to try it out.
Unreal. And our last question comes from either Jajapur or Yayapur or Hahapur, depending on the pronunciation. This one's for you, Charles, and it's less of a question, more of a request, I think.
Okay.
When can we expect more skill-changing uniques like the new Necro one. Give us one for multiple golems with a little smiley face.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, so obviously every season we are making a new unique for every class, and we really try to focus on giving brand new ways of playing or ways to kind of revitalize existing builds. Like obviously golem builds exist, so it is absolutely valid that we could potentially see one in the future that allows you to have additional golems. I can't specifically promise that just yet, but we're working on making brand new cool stuff every season.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, that takes us to the end of the Q&A. Thank you all for your incredible questions, and thank you to the community team for sourcing those. We really appreciate all the things that you want to know about the game. So yeah, and that brings us to the end of the stream. Keep in mind, we do have patch notes dropping following the stream, so check those out for any changes. And we did have the season overview blog launch this past Tuesday. So for all the needs, all the things you want to know, you'll find it there. But also, hopefully you've claimed your Sorcerer Staff already. But if you want more Twitch drops, actually, you know what? Before that, we sort of addressed this on the stream. Dan touched on it, but for season 9, the pet that you'll be able to earn from the season journey, claim Iris if you haven't already. But this is Dante. So if all the P9 viewers, you've probably seen Dante running around begging for treats. This is what he'll do when you hit the pet emote. So here's Dante. He is a good boy, even though he does look pretty menacing. He'll definitely keep people off your lawn, that's for sure. But yeah, finishing chapter 6 of the season journey will earn you Dante. And remember, you don't have to complete all of the tasks in chapter 6. You just need to complete enough to hit the reward level. So yeah, be sure to go in and claim him. And if you haven't already, be sure to claim Iris for season 8 Belial's Return already. Here's our season overview. Take a screenshot of this. This is hosted in our blog. This gives you all the details you need for season 9 Sins of the Herodrum. Gives you a great overview look at that. So you can definitely check those out. And if you enjoyed the Twitch drops on this stream, launching with our season on July 1st all the way through July 19th, you can watch at least 3 hours of any eligible Diablo 4 content creator, and you can grab the Glensoul Arbalest crossbow for the Rogue. And if you want some more details on that, we've got a Twitch drops blog publishing after the show. But yeah, 3 hours.
It's already published.
Any eligible channel.
If you want to check it out.
Diablo 4 directory. You'll be able to grab that sweet crossbow skin.
Yeah,
so yeah,
cool.
It's already published there.
And then we do have a very special delivery because also with July 1st is Charles Dunn's birthday. So happy birthday to Charles Dunn. With the season start, we've got a very special cake presenter.
Yes, my birthday is July 1st, so we're launching a whole Diablo season just for my birthday.
Yes,
so,
it's all for Charles Dunn.
That's a bit early. That's unlucky.
I was getting ready for right at the end, and then Adam popped in. I was like, okay, now it's cake time. So there's Adam.
Oh, that does not work. Okay.
It wouldn't be a stream without a surprise Adam appearance. Love that. So yeah, so you can celebrate the launch of the stream, and you can celebrate Charles Dunn's,
We just have to watch 3 hours of a stream to get it until July
stream. If you did have some
19th.
more questions, or you just want some more Diablo 4 content, Aislinn Hall is going to be joining Nacho in the Sanctuary Discord for another edition of Burning Questions. So Aislinn's doing double duty today. Right after the stream, she's running back to her desk and then jumping in the Sanctuary Discord to answer all those burning questions with Nacho. And we will be rating Nacho's stream following this one, so you can stick around and just check it out here if you'd like that as well.
Yeah.
I do want to give a huge thank you to everyone involved with the stream. Thank you to production for putting everything together. Also, for those of you at home, thank you for being here and joining with us. I can't believe, I think Rich called it out. It's our 29th stream for Diablo 4, which is just crazy. Dan sticks around 3 hours later on the East Coast, so Dan's been staying up late with us throughout this week. So you all don't get to see how busy Aislinn, Charles, and Dan all are, and they dedicate a lot of time on their schedule to be here. So we really do appreciate you being here, and thanks for tuning in. So yeah, July 1st, Season 9 Sins of the Herodrum is launching. Check out those patch notes following the stream, and we'll see you all in Sanctuary.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Nacho. We're gonna be raiding Nacho apparently. He's over here. We could not. Yeah. Patch notes. You never know where they are gonna show up. If they're gonna show up here or not. Hey, we're going over to Nachos.
Hello, you guys. Welcome. I'm so sorry. We raided into ourselves, and that was very confusing for a second. But welcome in, you guys. So nice to meet you. I am Nacho Chips X. You can call me Nacho. It's such a pleasure to meet you guys. I've been streaming Diablo 4 since the betas, and you know, we just got done with a little watch party here, watching the developer update. Oh my goodness. I honestly, there's so many things that.
All right. I love you, Nacho, but patch note. By the way, if you do this, right? If you mute up here but have this this thing on, it counts as a view. So like, if you want to support someone, just click on that, and you're Gucci. It counts as you're still watching them. Being said, where the hell are my patch notes? Oh, but I'm also checking the. I'm checking the Discord to see if someone has them. Surely someone will have them. Let's get the music in the background as well. Actually, I can't actually do normal music because it's gonna get me a copyright strike, because right now I'm streaming both of them to YouTube. So yeah, let's put some Artbound OST. Alright. I'm checking the Discords for if anyone has the patch note link. Updating this, nothing here. Sometimes it's here. Technically, technically speaking, this should send me to the other one. Yeah, this sends me here. We just have to keep on updating. Oh, there we go. Let me. Alright. Okay, Spirit Barn, we don't care. Blah 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 blah. Alright, Barbarian. There we go. Enhanced Fly. Vulnerable proc change increased from 15 to 50. That's kind of big, I guess. Brass Absorb no longer interrupts moment. Oh, that's big. That's actually big for general skills, but for worldly specific. You can just keep channeling, which means you can keep snapshots quite easily. Plus encourage knocking back enemies surrounding and getting berserker. Encourage knocking back and getting berserking and unstoppable for 10 seconds. Okay, it's just better for skills that are not basic. Cool. Heavy hitter, big nerf to heavy hitter. Wow. Big buff to Wolves of the Mountain, we already knew this. Massive nerf to Ugly Bastard. Ooh. Dust Devil. Ooh, big nerf Dust Devils as well. Well, it's still gonna be Medium's Earthquake, I guess. Unbroken Chain, I don't really care. Executioner Aspect. Oh, Earthquakes are done! It's lunging! It's gonna be lunging! It's gonna be lunging day! Oh, they got hit hard! Okay, Earthquakes got hit directly here, right? Here as well, directly. And then here, kinda indirectly. But like, everyone got hit by this, mostly. Vehement Augment Weapons Tempering. Replaced Heavy Hitter with... What? You can no longer temper Heavy Hitter! Nah! Earthquakes are done! And so are those devils, by the way, and minion builds as a whole. Well. Well, launching strike is gonna be the build this season. There's no way. Earthquakes got massive they got they're dead. Their Rumble Glyph got nerfed as well, dude. They're taking them out back. They're literally taking Earthquakes out back. They're dead. I would be surprised if you can do like a pit 90 with Earthquakes. Maybe even 80 with Earthquakes. They got gutted. Like Earthquake, like lunging Earthquake is still gonna be decent early on for leveling. It will no longer be super strong because you can't have a Vita ranks. Dude, they got gutted. Dude, this was too much. Okay, this like removing being able to temper them, and then on top of that, reducing the scaling, right? And then they didn't buff anything. By the way, they said they would buff Whirlwind. Wait a second. Like, I guess the only Whirlwind buff is this thing here. Like, we got gutted. We're done. We're not doing 100 this season, all right? We're not touching 100. Let's actually let's get into the general ones, right? I don't play Druid, okay? Let's get into the general stuff. Yeah. Victimize, that's Rogue. Okay, where's the general stuff? Because there was a fix to the... Where's the fix to... Okay, what's it called? Pain Gorgeous. There we go. General balance. Okay. Shard of Veracial. This was already done, right? The echo damage will now critical strike and overpower if the triggering damage was also critical and overpower. Hopefully this also extends to Ramadladness. But yeah, this was already in there. The stable massive nerf. Aspect of adaptability. This was already on the PTR. I don't know why this is blue. This was already like this. This was already these values in the PTR. So I'm not sure why this is blue, but yeah. Nothing here changes. So yeah. We're gonna be playing lunging. That's it. Wait, did I read? Oh yeah, this was already... Yeah, that's already on PTR. We're gonna be playing lunging. Earthquakes is done. You're probably gonna still play it early on because money tech is still quite strong. But yeah, top barbarian build, likely launching strike. Launching strike is gonna be your top build. So yeah, fun. I can't believe they got the earthquakes like that. They literally took they literally took them out back. Like, this was too much. See, this is the problem, that they just nerfed. This was too big of a nerf. Like, okay, we are all done with earthquakes, alright? But this was too fucking big. and the worst part of this, right, is that both this nerf and this, right, hit both Dust Devils and ultimate skills, right? Both ultimate skills that were already bad, besides minions, right? But that's because it double dipped. And Dust Devil's build, which was not really that great. It could be a minion Dust Devil might have been good. Not anymore though, but yeah. So yeah, literally they literally took them out back. I need to talk to other class people to see if their classes got gutted, because like they literally took us out back. All right. Well, thanks for coming, guys. I'll update. I'll upload the bod of the patch notes. It's not a lot. We got gutted. We got killed. We're not doing 100 this season unless we find some bug, or unless the Pingorges actually is that big. The fix to it is actually that big. I don't think it will be. We might we might touch 100 with Legend. We might touch it, but that's it. With like GG gear and stuff like that. But yeah, thanks for coming, guys. Make sure to subscribe and join the Discord if you want to get notifications when I do go live. And yeah, bye guys. See you soon. I need to grip, okay? I need to grip right now.